Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Living on the Edge. Parag Gunari of Pune writes, I would like you to show the whole country how unhygienic junk food is. Bad oil and unclean water is used. Even in restaurants, you can never be sure of how safe the food really is. Unfortunately, not many people know that it's not just junk foods that are unsafe. Today, almost all foods available run the risk of being contaminated or adulterated. So just how safe and nutritious is the food we all eat? Living on the Edge takes a look.
I'd like to have something that's low in calories and farm fresh. Something that's not from a tin, doesn't have monosodium glutamate, no cholesterol, no saccharin, no lead or mercury content. Something that doesn't have pesticides, DDT, chemical preservatives, or flavors and bacterial contamination.
I'm sorry, but we don't sell that kind of food anymore.
That might sound like an exaggeration, but today almost all foods available run the risk of having a contaminant of one kind or the other. There was a time when it was thought only exposed foods sold in unhygienic conditions could be a cause for concern. But today, what we eat even at home may not be as safe as we think. Each year, thousands of people across the length and breadth of the country are affected by food that is either contaminated or adulterated. However, it's only when the more dramatic amongst these cases gets highlighted in the media that one is rudely awakened to this danger. Ironically, despite recent improvements in the production, processing and packaging of food, more poisonous substances are entering into our food chain than ever before.
It has been estimated that the 70% of the deaths below the age of 5 years are related to, directly or indirectly, eating of unsafe food.
In the late 1970s, hundreds of people in some districts of Rajasthan reported severe liver ailments. 60% of the affected lost their lives. The epidemic baffled medical experts, but investigations later revealed that the maize had been contaminated with aflatoxin, a fungal growth. This is only one case that got highlighted because of the numbers involved. The reality is that biological contamination of our food is quite widespread and common, and often goes undetected. The main reason is that though production techniques have improved, the storage of agricultural produce leaves much to be desired. Moreover, fungal and bacterial contaminants thrive on the high humidity, which is a characteristic of countries like India. But it's not just biological contaminants that poison our foods. Today, much of the contamination is man-made. The Green Revolution, for one, validated the widespread use of chemical pesticides. Most pesticides are so persistent that even after years they do not degrade. Instead, they successfully enter our food chain. In fact, traces of DDT, a commonly used chemical pesticide, have been found even in the breast milk of nursing mothers. In the long term, a small but regular intake could cause cancer, genetic defects, and have a deleterious effect on male fertility. Most consumers are unaware of the fact that almost all our farm products are contaminated by chemical pesticides in one form or the other, and more often than not, they are added deliberately.
As far as milk goes, one point which is important is that in milk, some of the states like Punjab and Haryana, there have been cases where artificial material, what you can say, the chemicals are being used, even urea being used or caustic soda being used to increase the fat content. and it also enhances the life of milk. It doesn't get spoiled.
You go to any sabzi mandi, big, small, you'll find water containing pesticides where they dip these things, because it increases the shelf life of expensive produce like say cauliflower or grapes is one of the worst source of pesticides.
We haven't given much importance to the pesticides and all use, but we just see that, I mean, there's no worms, or, I mean, the vegetable is fresh.
But chemical pesticides are not the only contaminants one should look out for. Chalk powder, sand, starch, and even iron filings have been found mixed in everyday food items like dal, sugar, and even tea. Sometimes it could be a substance that is lethal. It was to protect the consumer that the Food Adulteration Act of 1954 was instituted. Under this act, food inspections are to be carried out regularly and samples treated to check for contaminants. But in reality, inspections like this are rarely carried out.
The act is effective if the cases are noticed and department takes action throughout the country. Prevention of food adulteration, this act 1954 is being implemented by various agencies, and the problems are that first I said the staff is not sufficient.
Maybe they are understaffed, maybe that's not my business, but the fact is that they are not effective. And in any case, even after there are lacunae in the law.
It's these lacunae or loopholes in the law that are exploited by unscrupulous traders and food companies. As a result, even a large number of banned additives like food colors and preservatives used to prevent food from getting rancid continue to be used indiscriminately. A study carried out in some rural districts in Uttar Pradesh some years ago showed some alarming results.
Out of the 902 colored foodstuffs analyzed, half of them showed the presence of 6 non-permitted dyes. Many of these banned chemicals are known to cause cancer and damage to the liver and kidneys.
And these colors could be present not just in open foods, but in some packed foods too. Though the list could be endless, Living on the Edge has put together some of the toxic colors and preservatives and the harmful effects they could have.
Tartrazine, a food coloring agent. Possible cancer-causing agent, provokes allergic reactions in many people. Sodium nitrite, an additive widely used in meat products. Nitrites are reported to cause brain damage and is a cancer-causing agent. Saccharin, used as a sweetener and in pan masala. Prolonged use causes cancer. Monosodium glutamate or Ajinomoto, used as a tastemaker especially in Chinese food, causes hyperactivity in children and allergic reactions.
This monosodium glutamate, for example, which is 300 crores worth of monosodium glutamate, according to the newspaper reports, I have no authentic, no other way of knowing, is being imported every year. With the result that even when you call a person for the weddings and all that, those people who come and cook food for you, those halwais and all that, you see, caterers as you call them here in Delhi, they are all using it.
Under the Act, most of these substances have to be tested for toxicity before they are permitted into the market. But the chemical is usually tested for immediate effects on laboratory animals and rarely for long-term effects. For instance, a chemical that causes a slight reduction in memory or hyperactivity would never be identified by current test procedures. In fact, food companies don't make it any easier for the consumer to identify the substances they use. For instance, it's not mandatory for the companies to mention the entire list of chemicals used on the package. If any substance were banned but continued to be used in the product, the consumer would never know.
It's a very bad, deleterious effect on health, and I would like to know on which product it's being used so I could stop it immediately.
Ironically, many additives and chemical pesticides banned in other countries continue to be permitted in India, simply because the relevant act has not been updated. In the end, the onus is on the consumer to demand that stronger action be taken to ensure the sale of safe foods.
You could buy only packed foods that have been tested by reputed standards like ISI and Eggmark. Right to manufacturing companies insisting that lists of chemical additives used are specified on the packet. Report and get tested any food that is suspect of being adulterated or artificially colored. Wash and clean vegetables, fruits and other agricultural products thoroughly before cooking.
When 450 school children in Chandigarh are hospitalized after eating biscuits in a midday meal program, it's a reminder that even seemingly harmless snacks may be potentially harmful. The question is, how much poisoning can our bodies take? Still to come, a revealing report on animal testing carried out by the cosmetic industry and how innovative garbage bins are designed to motivate people to be more conscientious about garbage disposal. When BP Pereira, an electronics consultant from Madurai, wrote asking us to do a story on some of the harmful effects of cosmetics on our skin and hair, the first question we asked ourselves was, what about the animals these products are tested on? Nandini Rajwade documents some of the cruel experiments carried out on animals to test the efficacy of the cosmetics we use and asks whether these experiments are really necessary.
This is the true story of a mouse rescued from a cosmetics testing laboratory. In 1986, she arrived at a laboratory where a person in a white coat plucked her from a cage, brought a huge pair of clippers, and snipped off her toe. She was reeling from the shock when the clippers shifted and snapped off her second toe. Lab worker was showing a new staff member their ways. We do this for identification. The chart on the wall shows what toes were cut off for what test. This one will be used in a toxic reaction test for a shampoo.
For decades, research laboratories around the globe have used animals in scientific experiments designed to test the efficacy and safety of the drugs and cosmetics we use. While science has developed tremendously over the years, it is still considered necessary to use animals in the preparation of potions that claim to make us humans look beautiful. And this, in spite of the fact that successful animal testing does not guarantee the efficacy of the product.
If a cream has to be tested, they take a monkey, they shave off the fur of that monkey, they pour the chemicals which will go in the cream and they wrap it up. I've seen it all. It is wrapped for 24 hours. After 24 hours, they remove that putty and they see if the skin is swollen or it is normal. They strap the animals so that they can't move at all. They pull their eyelids back and they pour the concentrated amount of whatever chemical has to be used in that cosmetic in the eyes of this animal.
The Cosmetics Act of India, which dates back to 1962, states that all batches of cosmetics must undergo rigorous tests before they enter the market. More often than not, cosmetic companies, having been given a free hand under the provisions of this archaic law, conduct these tests on animals in their laboratories. And if you'd like to know what these tests to ensure the safety of the cosmetic products we use in our everyday lives can involve, here are a few examples. The Drey's eye irritancy test is used to test eye makeup like mascara and eyeliners and involves putting a potentially caustic substance in the eyes of rabbits and monkeys till they go blind. In an attempt to escape the agonizing pain, these animals, usually confined in stocks, invariably end up breaking their backs or necks. Those that survive are either used in some other test or killed. This monkey suffered one such test. The lethal dose or LD test, used to test shampoos, involves the injecting or force feeding of a chemical substance into the animal. Reactions to the increased toxicity usually include bleeding from the nose, eyes or mouth, an inability to breathe, convulsions, paralysis, and finally death. Other tests include strapping the animal down to boards, shaving its fur, and then testing a host of creams and lotions on its sensitive skin. While experiments such as these are being conducted on animals by cosmetic companies in research laboratories across the country, most go undocumented, and very little data from these tests is ever made public. In fact, most companies simply deny that these tests take place, a view that administrators are happy to corroborate.
In case a new ingredient or a new molecule is introduced in the cosmetics, which is done in very preliminary stage by those who are innovators, those who do research work, at that stage, yes, some skin tests are done on animals so that the irritation or any such reaction doesn't occur to human beings. So those are tested, or any preparation which is used near the eye irritation tests are done on animals. Other than that, I don't think there is much of any animal testing done for cosmetics.
The companies which are sending their cosmetics for testing in these pharmaceutical labs are Lakme, Johnson & Johnson, Godrej, Pond's, Tips and Toes, Gala of London, New Haven, you name it, all. I mean, whichever product is in India, they are all being tested.
It would seem strange then that even though the law permits it, cosmetic companies do not admit to the laboratory testing of their products on animals. But if we consider the fact that professionals in medicine have stated that equating animal test results to humans proves almost nothing, we might have our answer.
From the point of view of efficiency, we are much better off doing anything we do in vitro than in animals, because it is cheaper, quicker, more reliable, and there is less variation. Everything about it is better. As an ophthalmologist, I have no use for the Dray's test data because the rabbit's eye differs from the human eye.
Cruelty inflicted on these animals then might just be an unnecessary habit, and to which there exist several successful and productive alternatives. For example, human cell and tissue culture tests can be done for both toxicity and eye irritancy. Organ cultures such as human corneas from eye banks or discarded placentas could replace rabbits, while computers programmed with information from human experiences could be used to measure toxicity levels and their effect. There are many alternatives to avoid the sacrificing of animals each year. All that is needed is the will.
Indian companies are testing their products on animals, whether they openly say it or they don't say it. No cosmetic in our country writes clearly that they are not testing on animals.
The question is, why should Indian companies specifically mention that their products are not being tested on animals when there is no demand for this from any quarter? The Indian consumer remains unaware of the bizarre experiments animals in research laboratories are put through, as well as the option to demand products free from animal testing.
This makeup you use, are you aware of the fact that it's first tested on animals in the laboratory and then it comes out into the market?
No, I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
These cosmetics you use, do you know that they're tested on animals in laboratories?
No, I don't know about this thing.
Okay, now if you knew that they had tested a certain eyeliner or mascara or a cream on a particular animal by mutilating the animal, by hurting the animal, would you still buy it?
Never. I'll never even touch it.
Abroad, awareness is increasing, and public pressure has forced a number of cosmetic companies to clearly state the procedure used to test their products. That then leaves the consumer with the option to choose between a cosmetic that was or wasn't tested on animals. In India, till such time that we as consumers of cosmetic products demand, as is our right, products that have not been tested on animals, cosmetic companies will not be hard-pressed to end this practice. To push yourself to take action, the next time you use lipstick, mascara, or perhaps splash on a little aftershave, remember the animals that were mutilated in its perfection.
From beauty without cruelty to beauty with a function. A recent innovative garbage bin design competition held in Bangalore threw up some interesting and user-friendly options. The idea quite simply being, a garbage bin that attracts immediate attention is more likely to be used than a garbage bin that doesn't. Sneha Koshi met some of the participants to see just what they came up with.
Dirt, stink, and putrefied rubbish have become synonymous with garbage bins. So much so that some people assume that they are ideal public toilets.
We cannot sit in the balcony because this has become a public latrine. Every minute somebody is coming. If I sit for half an hour, there will be 100 people. And so we close the windows and doors because we don't get this stink in our building.
Because there are a lot of stray dogs in the area and there are cows and things like that. So by the time all of them finish sort of rummaging and poking through it, there's garbage all across the street and it really looks very unsightly.
These bins are a common sight in most of our metros. The point is, how effective can it possibly be? These bins have no lids and is open on both ends, emitting a foul stench. Animals have no difficulty helping themselves. Most often, the garbage is around the bin rather than inside it.
Lack of space could be one reason for overflowing rubbish, but the obvious lack of volume is not the only problem. This bin, as large as a room, doesn't shut properly and nobody uses the garbage chute that is provided. Instead, it is nonchalantly dumped around the bin. The case with fabricated metal bins is the same. The emptying procedure is manual, it's time-consuming, and most often never leaves the bin really clean. Even the wear and tear of the bin is high. Moreover, the damage extends to the air and soil around the bin, which is increasingly polluted. Bins also breed flies and mosquitoes, which are disease carriers. But the worst affected are the rag pickers, who handle the garbage with no protection.
I agree that it is not very hygienic, but from past several decades, this is the type of bin which is being used in Bangalore city and several other cities, probably because the making is easier. We have not tried getting a new design for this.
But an environmental organization, Waterfront, based in Bangalore, has decided to change that by launching designer garbage bins. A competition was thrown open to the public to design a bin to counter existing problems. The only requirement was that it would have to cope with holding 2 days of garbage from 200 households, assuming that the corporation empties the bin on alternate days.
Essentially, the existing bin is such an ill-designed item. The design is something like 13th century. Just an empty cylindrical container without a top lid nor a bottom. We thought we could use the design minds in the country today to come out with an ergonomic and well-designed bin.
Garbage bins are required to be located at a distance of 100 meters from each other, which is a reasonable distance to expect people to walk to dispose of the garbage. This means that there should be high visibility of the bin, and it was fascinating to see the creative designs that the contestants came up with. We talked to a designer who created a bin that looked like a pelican and yet served its purpose.
This is a main bin where you have the organic waste, and that's why it's big also. And to clear it, we have doors down. You just open it, the whole thing will fall down. And to the sides you have for the inorganic, and where you have recyclable materials inside. So this rag pickers will just come and take it. They won't disturb the other one. And you have a lid to protect it from rain and smell also.
Scores of designers across all age groups participated in the competition, coming up with the most innovative ideas. Some of the more unusual ones included discarded bodies of four-wheelers, modernistic designs, sunken pits, elevated bins, landscape bins, even one that was designed to look like a camera. The use of bullock carts was another innovation.
We will place carts in locations where accumulation of garbage is very high, such as hotels, restaurants, bus stations, railway stations, kalyana mandapa, shopping complexes and so on. When the garbage is put into the cart, every night the bullock will come or will be brought, and the garbage will be moved to a distant location. From there it will be tipped directly or dumped directly into trucks, which will remove to the dumping grounds.
The bullock cart concept is appropriate in a country with more than 15 million bullock carts. However, it does not take into consideration easy accessibility for rag pickers. We consulted experts on what the salient features of an ideal bin should be.
The garbage bin should be covered completely, so that the unauthorized persons do not handle that. The ideal bin should be it should have good ventilation, and it should be affordable to the corporation to purchase, and then the people should accept such bin.
We intend to also use very bright colors, and try to remove the image of a drab, uninteresting object that the current dustbin is.
Citizens should do their bit by segregating wet and dry waste so that the rag pickers who are doing their bit towards cleaning and recycling can have the dignity they are looking for, and so that organic waste can go to compost fields.
We managed to keep our house clean. Why not the streets, right? So the problem goes on from one street to the big a city or a town, and then it addresses the whole nation.
Till we meet again next week, here's something to think about.
1/3 of the world's leprosy patients are in India.